listening to Into the Arena, a Hunger Games podcast sparking the fandom one episode at a time, with your hosts, Holly and Emily. Special thanks for music by Sam Cushion.
Welcome back, everyone. Once again, I'm Holly.
And I'm Emily.
And you're listening to Into the Arena podcast. This is our third episode, which we were just talking, and it's flying by so fast. I think we're just having so much fun with this. And we're finally into the swing of things. I feel like we're getting a hold on recording and all the technical difficulties. And I'm sure you've noticed over the last few weeks, we're feeling a little more confident. So I'm really excited now that we're getting into it. We also have social media accounts that you guys can check out. TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us at Into the Arena Podcast. One week you want to change it up and you're listening or watching, you can always do the reverse and do the other, because you can find us on YouTube and then Spotify. So Emily has some fun things that we're going to do this week to start off our episode.
Yeah, so I do have one little update to bring up. Last week we had talked about putting all the Hunger Games characters into the Myers-Briggs personality types. So if you missed that episode, check it out. But because we had such a disagreement on Haymitch and whether he was an introvert or an extrovert, I decided to take it to the people, take it to the fans. And I went to the Hunger Games official Facebook group. It has 6,000 people in it. And I posted a poll there on whether people thought Haymitch was an introvert or an extrovert. And as of now, so I posted it this morning, and there were 45 people who said introvert, 22 people said ambivert. Somebody added that option.
Yeah.
And 4 people said extrovert.
I told you.
So I shouldn't have let them add that ambivert option, because I feel like that's kind of a cop-out. I mean, I would probably say that he's an ambivert as well, but I might have to admit defeat.
Finally, it only took a week. After recording, it was so funny. You texted me that video of your sister asking her if Haymitch is an introvert or an extrovert. That. Yeah, you should. And
maybe on TikTok.
Yeah, we'll post that. And then last night at dinner, I was asking my sister the same question, and immediately she's like, introvert. So he's an introvert. It's decided. No. We can agree. We can settle this one. But
all right,
it was such a fun discussion. It's fine. I feel like he definitely is an introvert. I'll lead that pack forever,
So getting into our little pre-game festivities, I found an apparently hard Hunger Games quiz online at MTV. And it's a Hunger Games quote quiz. So it's just quotes and who in the Hunger Games said the quote. I looked at the first 1 or 2, and it looks like it's pretty good. Hopefully we're not proven fake fans after this. I'm a little bit scared.
Me too.
Okay, but I think there's 29 questions, so we're just going to try and zip through this and see how well we do. Okay, so number 1, you don't forget the face of the person who was your last hope.
That's a Katniss quote.
Yeah, definitely Katniss.
That's Katniss. I know one.
Number 2, you've got about as much charm as a dead slug.
That's easy. Haymitch. That's Mr. Introvert.
Number 3, destroying things is much easier than making them.
That one's hard. I don't know. The choices are Gale, Katniss, Haymitch, and Peeta.
I think I'm
leaning toward Gale. Really? I'm leaning towards Gale, but I don't know.
I think I trust you more than I trust me.
I don't. So. But that sounds a lot like the first quote, though.
It sounds like that's true. I think it sounds like something Katniss would have said in her head.
I think, yeah, or she could. I feel like it'd also be a Mockingjay quote. Let's try it. Let's see. What is it? It
is Katniss. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yay.
Yay.
Okay. Number 4. I want the audience to recognize you when you're in the arena.
Mr. Cinna.
Yep. 5, I don't know what ate the cheese. I think this is PETA.
Yeah.
In the arena? This is just a wild guess. I do not remember at all, but I think maybe, well, I don't know. How would they have cheese?
Yeah, I know.
I don't know.
I was thinking like maybe it would have been like about Foxface or something. Like a quote from Katniss about her stealing food. That was like what I initially thought. But
where would cheese show up?
Glimmer is not going to be the one that said it because Glimmer barely speaks.
Or is this really about cheese? Is it cheese like cheesiness?
I feel like it might be kind of funny. So it might be like PETA's sense of humor.
It sounds like a PETA line to me.
Yeah, I think it's PETA. Let's see. Yeah, it's PETA. I don't know what part that's from.
I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
Yeah. Oh,
okay,
this
District
next one.
12, where you can starve to death in safety. That's Katniss.
Katniss, yeah, it's a Katniss quote.
Number 7, well, I don't have much competition here.
PETA.
Yep.
PETA. Oh
He's so cute in the arena.
The cave scene, I'm getting hot.
All my favorite lines of his, just in the first arena.
I know.
It's wonderful. I fell in love.
That's why I love the first book, I think. It's really just the cave scenes.
Yeah. The cave. Okay, number 8. Kind people have a way of working their way inside me and rooting there.
Katniss. Yeah, her fatal flaw.
Number 9. Because when he sings, even the birds stop to listen.
That's a character we're talking about today.
Mr. Mellark, right? This is a Mr. Mellark quote. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, talking about Katniss's mom, or Katniss's dad.
Number 10, you know, you're kind of squeamish for such a lethal person.
At first I thought Johanna, but isn't it PETA?
I think it's PETA.
When she's like fixing his leg.
To Katniss. Yeah. Yep. Number 11, well, don't expect us to be too impressed. We just saw Finnick Odair in his underwear. I forgot about this line.
Yeah, and it didn't even make the movie.
Oh, such a shame.
My favorite, Boggs. I love him. Oh,
Number 12. I wish I could freeze this moment right here, right now, and live in it forever. PETA Mellark, of course. None other. Rooftop scene.
Oh, the rooftop scene.
The best. Oh. Okay, number 13. It takes 10 times as long to put yourself back together as it does to fall apart. You know that's
Mr. Finnick,
right?
Yeah.
And he does get to say that in the movie. 14. I told you we should have rescued the boy first. That's Coin, right?
Yeah, because it's not. It's not Plutarch, because Coin wanted him.
PETA instead of Katniss.
Yeah.
15. Don't look so smug. We'll kill you anyway.
I don't think I remember this one actually.
I don't totally either. I think it's Johanna.
It's definitely not Seneca. The choices are Johanna, Brutus, Seneca, Crane, and Enobaria.
Enobaria.
So I feel like I don't think we even get to hear Enobaria talk in the book too often. So I feel like it would be more of a Johanna quote.
I'm unsure.
Let's see. It's Johanna. You were right from the start. Yeah.
Okay. Number 16. Yes, Caesar, I am very prepared. That's not a book line, is it?
It's a movie line.
Okay.
With Glimmer.
Neither of us wanted to save her. Number 17. Whole country in rebellion wouldn't want anything like that. That is Johanna.
I love her sarcasm.
Did I say her name differently than the other time?
I don't know. Every time I read it, I'm trying to say it right.
I know, I have to think.
I'll get him to the table at gunpoint if necessary. Isn't that my boyfriend?
I don't know. I
think it's PETA about Haymitch, like getting him ready to go places.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh no.
No?
wrong.
No? Did we get it
It was
wrong?
Effie. Yeah.
Wait,
What part
what?
is that from? Yeah, that's Effie.
I don't
I'm gonna look this
know.
one up.
It's about
Wait.
Haymitch, for sure.
Yeah.
It's got to be the Hunger Games.
She saw, it was probably between like the tribute parade and the games, because at first nobody cared at all. And then after Senna did everything for them during the parade, Effie was like, ooh, you maybe have a chance.
Yeah, I don't remember that line at all. It definitely sounds like a PETA line.
I know.
Well, does it? Because PETA is such a pacifist.
Unfortunately, I can't seal the sponsor deals for you. Only Haymitch can do that, says Effie grimly. But don't worry, I'll get under the table at gunpoint if necessary. So it was about sponsors.
Interesting. I guess maybe it's just the thought of Effie like holding a gun or doing anything. Like
that's something I want to see.
Ridiculous.
That's cool.
Got our first one wrong. Okay, number 19. I drag myself out of nightmares each morning and find there's no relief in waking.
That's so sad.
It is sad.
Mockingjay
Finnick
Finnick
is a
just
sad
destroys
character.
Yeah.
Number 20. Some walks you have to take alone.
Katniss.
Yeah.
I love that line.
Yeah, these are good quotes. 21. I always channel my emotions into my work. That way I don't hurt anyone but myself. Cinna.
But then he does get hurt.
Yeah, I don't hurt anyone but myself. And his self is killed.
His self is killed. Oh.
22. Aim higher in case you fall short.
Haymitch.
Is
it?
Isn't that President Snow?
I thought that was a Haymitch line.
Wait.
Yeah, it's President Snow. I clicked it.
Okay.
That was so sad. I was sure that it was a Haymitch line.
Isn't that what he says when he says to convince that Katniss and PETA are romantically interested in each other? And she's like, I'll convince them. And he's like, aim higher in case you fall short. How can I aim higher? Convince me. That's a good scene. 23. Maybe I'll be like that man in the hanging tree, still waiting for an answer. Frickin' Gale Hawthorne.
Gale Hate Club. Seriously, we had a comment on one of our TikToks. I don't know who it was.
I was gonna let you answer that.
Okay, we'll go through the quotes, and then I wanna address this Gale comment.
All right. Number 24. I wish she was dead. I wish they were all dead, and we were too. It would be best. Finnick's lines. They're
so sad.
Dark.
He's so depressed.
And then he dies. 25. Just how grimy can we make her without disgusting people?
That's
Fulvia or Venia?
Fulvia. It wouldn't be Venia. I feel like Venia was too triggered and Mockingjay to say anything like that.
It is Fulvia. 26. If I could grow wings, I could fly. Only people can't grow wings. That's Katniss, right?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, wait. PETA? Okay, where does this quote come from? Why are we so bad at this?
I don't know. Where is that When does he say this? Now it sounds familiar, but...
Is it like the night before the games on the roof, maybe?
I don't know. It sounds like it would be a Katniss quote, I guess just because of the Mockingjay symbolism.
Yeah. I feel like it would be before the first games. Let's see. If I could grow
wings. This in the arena? When does he compare himself to a bird?
Oh, so it's from Mockingjay. If I could grow wings, I could fly. Only people can't grow wings, he says, real or not real.
Oh.
Real, I say, but people don't need wings to survive. Mockingjays do.
Okay, so there is that tie-in with the Mockingjay. I do remember that.
That hurts.
That's sad. Because this is when PETA's really, really going through it.
Yeah. Let's see. Next one.
I don't think you understand how important you are to the cause. Important people usually get what they want.
Prim. That's a little prim.
28. If we lose, then I would expect next year's Hunger Games to be quite unforgettable.
Oh, that's about the rebellion. It would be Plutarch.
Okay, I'm going to trust you because I don't remember.
It's Plutarch. Yeah.
And then the last one, 29. If only I could build you wings like these, Katniss.
BT.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
I probably would have guessed Cinna and gotten it
I feel
wrong.
like it would be Cinna, but then I remember in Mockingjay he talks about like the hummingbirds. Well, that was fun.
27 out of
we missed a
29.
few. Oh, okay.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Okay. That was a really fun intro, but it brought
Also
me into Gale.
anxiety-inducing.
I know. I don't want people to think that we're fake fans.
You did good.
So I made a TikTok this past week on our Into the Arena podcast TikTok. And it's all about how Gale can't get any girls because nobody likes Gales. And we got a lovely comment. We really appreciate everyone's comments. Seriously. This is just my opinion, Emily's opinion. So don't take it to heart. But somebody commented saying, okay, I've read the books and watched the movies, and sure, he acts a little cold, but why all the Gale hate? I don't get it. And to answer that question without going into a rant, I feel like we should have a Gale hate episode one day, just so we can kind of address all our issues with him.
That's a good idea.
But Gale is just a messed up guy. I feel as though a big complaint comes from the bomb that kills Prim. And we don't know for sure if it was his bomb, like if he had wanted, like we know it's his bomb, but if he wanted to actually use it in that situation, like it gets a lot like really clouded at the end of the book. However, he was throughout Mockingjay, rereading Mockingjay, you realize how much hate this man has in his heart and how misdirected it is. And I think rereading Mockingjay, it really demonstrated to me how cruel he was on the inside and how much he suppressed just to, I don't know, just to hold back these feelings. And then once he was able to go through Mockingjay and go through the rebellion, he just completely lost himself. And I think he became such a hate-filled person that it completely changed who he was.
He's
and
so
I think
full of hate.
Yeah, it's just, it hurts him so much to the point that Katniss can't even see herself having any sort of future with him, even as a friend. And so for me, Gale is just such a negative, awful human because of what his world has done to him, that I don't think that he will ever be able to change because of it. So also he's just gross to me.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. We should have a full Gale episode. I mean, as much as I don't want to talk about Gale for like an hour,
Same.
It'll be good just to get that out of our system and explain all of our thoughts.
Yeah, it's I liked him at first, don't get me wrong.
I mean, he has a really good friendship with Katniss at the beginning. They really support each other. They're there for each other, but then they really go their separate ways. And Gale is definitely just raging and full of hate. And so I can't accept that. So we just throw the hate right back on him.
Exactly. So yes, you're allowed to have your opinion. Please come tell us all the reasons why you love Gale. Maybe we need to be enlightened a little bit about that. So please be open with that. But yeah, I want to make fun of him the rest of my life. I guess off of that, today our episode is all about characters from the books who did not make it into the movies. So I guess we'll just dive right into that.
So we'll start with the Hunger Games, and we'll start with a character that probably is the one that people talk about most when we talk about characters that didn't make it into the movies. And of course, that's Madge, Madge Undersea. She is the mayor's daughter. She's a friend of Katniss, and she is basically the origin of the Mockingjay pin. So let's talk about her.
I love Madge. I used to adore her, and here's where I will bring in Gale. I used to ship Madge and Gale. I felt like a lot of people in the fandom did. And this morning when I was getting our notes ready for today, I went onto my old fan fiction, like my Wattpad, and I found a Madge fan fiction that I wrote. And so I
Oh
fell in
my
love with her
gosh.
again. But I love Madge. I think the movie really missed out by not having her in it because even though she's only in it for a limited time, I think she reflects certain values that the movies didn't always get across. I think the first big one that we can talk about is the first time we're introduced to her, where Gale and Katniss are hunting and they come and um, bring her stuff to trade before the games. And I think we kind of discussed this the other day a little bit, where Gale has all this resentment towards Madge, even though Madge is probably one of the nicest characters that we are introduced to in the whole series, just because of her place in society as the mayor's daughter. And I think Katniss is first introduced to that little piece of Gale's hatred right there. I think that's where we get that first taste of Gale suppressing this hatred and this this hatred of the Capitol and what it stands for. So even though Madge is from District 12, her whole family's from District 12, she just represents this connection that Gale can't take. At the same time, I really love her in Catching Fire as well, where she delivers I think it's the morphine or some medicine or something,
Yeah.
to Gale after he's whipped. And then I think that comes full circle to the way that Gale treated her the first time that they met, because he always seemed a little bit standoffish to her, and yet here she is going out of her way to make sure that he's okay. And yet in the end, she unfortunately dies, we can assume, in the bombing. But I just loved Madge. I think that she was a really soft friend, and knowing Katniss briefly from her time in school, she was always someone who talked about being quiet and reserved and not really having friends, but Madge was someone who always sat with her and was that kind of alliance in school, I guess, because as a quiet kid, it's hard to branch out. So for me, Madge was just like a comfort character. And yeah, I think by not having her in the movie, I really hated how they gave the pin to Katniss. I really hated it because what is it? She bought it from Greasy Say and then gave it to Prim the same day, and then Prim gave it back to her the same day. So I just really didn't like the way that the pin existed, because she was the one who gave her the pin in the book. And so for me, it's just these little details that created so much of who Katniss became.
Yeah, I agree with all of those points
I know, I just realized I'm like,
wholeheartedly.
I love Madge.
Yeah, the fact that just what you said, that the pin goes, like, just switches hands so quickly, and it's like, oh, to protect you? Well, it didn't even protect Prim, like,
That's true.
it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, talking more about like the pin, I think it's important for that pin to have a better origin story than that. Just like, oh, here you go. Like, I just found it this morning, because it's literally, like, it's the icon of all the films. Katniss wears it throughout, in varying colors and styles and everything. And it's on all the posters, it's on all the merch. Like, so to have such a weak introduction to the Mockingjay pin, and then in Catching Fire, we learn it has even more of a backstory related to Haymitch and Maysilee and other characters that didn't make it into the film. But it really feels like the pin in the movies has zero meaning.
I agree 100%. And I think it's also hard because Katniss, it only ever seemed like Gale was her friend. I
Yeah,
don't think, like, if
they
I were
cut a
I
lot of
I read the
Katniss's
books.
friends.
Yeah, I read the books before I watched the movies, so I don't really know the perspective of watching the movie before reading the book. But I mean, you can kind of assume that like maybe Peeta and her were friends if you only watch the movie. Like, you don't know that, like, we only get that brief scene of him throwing the bread, but even then it's like maybe they were somehow connected. But the book really clears it up. And for me, it's just hard watching her only have two guy friends when deep down we know that she was still really quiet. Her and Gale didn't even interact much in school because he's 2 years older than her. So Madge was genuinely someone who was always there for her outside of Gale and Peeta.
Yeah, I feel like there are several characters on this list that were cut that just add more depth, I guess, to Katniss and like her life outside of just what happens like related to the games and the rebellion. And it would have been nice if they had included more than just two guy friends, that she like kind of knows Peeta. Like they're not really friends though. And I think all those characters show that Katniss is not as isolated and is more known and respected in District 12 than she realizes.
Yeah, because we don't learn that till later when she comes across these characters, including Mr. Malark, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But yeah, and Madge would have been so easy to put into there because
So easy.
her interactions are so short and yet they're so meaningful. Like that, when you first meet Madge, that scene would have taken less than 3 minutes. So for me, it was just kind of disheartening to see that. And yeah, I'll always feel that way about the pin, because even if Prim had given her the pin, she had somehow bought it or had it for a while in the movie, it would have been more meaningful than the switching through. So
well, and they could have fixed that even without Madge, just related to the pin. Like maybe the pin is kind of a missing character in a way.
True, yeah.
But they could have fixed that in Catching Fire by explaining just the part of the pin that was related to like Maysilee.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't even have to talk about Madge or like introduce her character in the second movie. Somebody could have just noticed it and been like, oh, like that pin was part of related to Haymitch's games, but you know, they also didn't have Haymitch's games. So that's a whole other thing. But I also feel like you were talking a little bit before, like Madge and how like upset Gale was with her, just the disparity of social class even in District 12 is something that was missing, and having Madge would have shown that that's kind of a way that the Capitol controls people even in the districts, of having different social classes even within the poor districts. So I feel like that's missing as well.
Yeah, I agree. And it was a big, I know when the chairs, that promo came out for Catching Fire, I believe it was, where they're all individually sitting on the chairs. There's
chairs.
that meme with Madge. It's like, oh wait, Madge isn't in the movie. It was just so upsetting to see that.
It
because
was.
I think she really is one of the fandom's favorite characters. Like, she's obviously not the top character, but I think there's definitely, like, she would be on that top list of maybe 10 or 15 characters that I wish she would have been somewhat incorporated into it. So
I can't believe that you shipped Gale with Madge.
Like,
was that just in the first book, or like as it went on? And because Madge deserves so much more than Gale.
I know. And I think pre-Mockingjay Gale is like an average guy. He's not someone I hate. But for me, I just got it because Katniss and Peeta always were ending up together in my mind, regardless of what Suzanne wrote, which she wrote the right thing. But I kind of liked how she was really sincere. She kind of reminded me of a Prim character. She was very caring and sweet. And like I said, just like when Gale got the whipping and she brought the morphling to him, I thought it was just like a sweet gesture that maybe when Katniss was gone or when she was in the games, maybe she was a character that he kind of leaned on in more of like a friendship way. So it's just always a non-canon thing that I kind of
Doesn't
like.
Haymitch also like say, is like, hey, is there a little something going on between those two? I think so, when she brings the medicine.
Oh yeah. So I think that's where my little mind is like. But yeah, I only had one chapter on this fan fiction, so I'm kind of tempted to go back and write it.
You should read it.
Oh yeah, my one chapter.
Just read it on the air.
I will. We'll do a fan fiction episode. I'll just come on and do like spoken word fan fiction the whole time.
I'm safe because I never wrote any fan fiction.
That's so funny. But also, just off of that, it was so funny going through all my fan fiction, because I'm gonna make a TikTok today about how I found one of my old Jacob and Renesmee fan fiction. and everyone hates him. So if you're part of the Twilight fandom and you don't hate Renesmee, check out my Wattpad. But if you do, then just ignore it.
I do have something I could read though, because I used to write Hunger Games song parodies.
Oh, really?
So I could maybe read some of those. We could just go through our like random Hunger Games inspired creativity.
Let's do that. That sounds so cool. I'm really interested in the
we're
song
writing that
parodies.
down.
Sweet. Okay, so I'll work on my Gale and Madge fanfic in the meantime. But
so who do we have next?
We have Mr. Malark, who is actually a really meaningful character in the first book. So obviously that's Peeta's dad, and he is from the merchant class. He was one of there was Madge, Gale, Katniss's mom, and Prim, and then Mr. Malark, who visited Katniss before she went to the Capitol in her first games. And he actually came to her and brought her cookies and said he'll take care of Prim, even though he doesn't even call her Prim. He's like, I'll just take care of the girl. I'm like, okay. But we learn later on that there is a deeper connection to Mr. Malark and the Everdeen family, because Mr. Malark was in love with Katniss's mom growing up, because she was also from the merchant class as well. However, she married down out of her class, which is another important part, to be with Katniss's dad. So I think once we learn that, because she's really confused why he comes to visit her at her first games, because obviously she's competing to the death against his son. But once Peeta tells her that story about his dad and the relationship to Katniss, you realize how much Mr. Malark does care for the Everdeen family, and he does kind of look out for them because he does trade with them a lot. And so I thought he was just a really sweet character. And he also, again, brings up that idea of class in District 12, which we talked about with Madge.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why he was cut. I feel like he gives development to other characters who are important, but I think that development comes in other ways as well, like with Prim, showing that people cared about her, she was popular, she's sweet. With Peeta, I mean, just obviously as his father, and a contrast to his mother, who treated him so badly. And then with Mrs. Everdeen and him being interested in her, and kind of that parallel between him and Mrs. Everdeen and Peeta and Katniss.
Yeah. But I also wrote in my notes that without the backstory, like you said, it would be hard to write him in. It would have been hard because, again, we're reading the books from a first-person perspective where we're reading her thoughts. So at first we're all like, why is Peeta's dad visiting her? Because Peeta just got pulled. We don't know anything.
I feel like it was even hard for them to show the relationship of Katniss and Peeta, and with the bread visually. I don't know that came across super well in the movies. So I agree, it would have been super hard. It just doesn't translate well.
That's one of the important. Yeah, that's one of the themes that I think the movies lack, is that continual IOU that Katniss writes or thinks about in her head, with the Peeta saved her life, now she owes him. She saved Rue's life, Thresh owes her, like that sort of thing. I think that the movies, again, like you said about the bakery scene, it just did not play. So unfortunately, I think he's a great character to have in the books, but I just could not see him making the movie, so I understood that choice.
Yeah, Katniss has a lot of motives throughout that are owing people or feeling guilty. It's like a big part of her character, I feel like. But yeah, it just doesn't translate super well. I don't know exactly how they could have got that. And, I mean, without dialogue, which that could just get tiresome.
Yeah.
Talking about how she owes people. So.
And again, it's just like all these connections to different characters are, I mean, how are you supposed to demonstrate the merchant class and the seam? And yeah. So.
But we love Mr. Malark. Yeah.
We'll enjoy you in the books.
So our next character is Lavinia, also known as the Avox girl in the first and second book, because I don't think we learn her name until Peeta reveals it in Mockingjay. So she's the girl that Katniss sees running away in the woods when she's out hunting. She's seen with a boy, which is, we don't know who he is. Katniss says maybe her brother or a lover or something. But the boy's killed. She's captured. Katniss doesn't jump in to save her or try and protect her or anything. And when Katniss is reaped and goes to the capital, the Avox girl ends up serving her. So she sees her again before going back into the games. And the same in Catching Fire as well. And then in Mockingjay, it's revealed that she was tortured, I guess, in the capital, and like because PETA overhears her screams.
Mhm. Yeah.
Terrible.
I always had a hard time reading this character because it's a really hard situation to read about. Especially with Katniss's perspective being from a flashback and being so young when it happened and witnessing that. Again, it goes back to that comment you said about her feeling she either owes people, she acts on owing people or feeling guilt, because as soon as she sees Lavinia, she just shuts down completely and gets so emotionally distressed.
Yeah, I was rereading this part in the Hunger Games. Well, the couple of parts where she shows up, and Katniss like actually thinks her not jumping in to try and help her in the woods or save her is just as bad as watching the Hunger Games on TV. Mm-hmm. I was like, that is really harsh on yourself. Like you were saying, she's so young. Like, what could she have really done? She probably would have ended up captured or killed herself. Like, it's totally different from sitting down and like enjoying the Hunger Games as entertainment. Yeah, in my opinion. But she puts a lot on herself as just a kid.
Yeah, when I read that, I think I had a hard time in understanding that as well. But I think it's more so just showing how the districts are completely at the hands of the Capitol. Like, they don't watch it to enjoy it, but it's just like, what else can you do? Because if you step up and try and do something, you'll get killed too. And so
that's true.
Hearing that story was always really hard. But I think the hardest part was hearing about her death, and I think it was who was it? Darius's death in torture. That was really awful. And just like the tragic side of that life, because again, the movies never explored the Avoxes the way that I wanted them to. But how are you supposed to explore that?
From
I guess without adding
perspective. Yeah. It's also interesting because Katniss notes that she looks like she's a Capitol citizen. So she was a Capitol person running away, and we don't know why. I mean, I guess there's the obvious that the Capitol is terrible, so why wouldn't you run away? But like, we don't really see that again. We don't see many people doing that. So I've always just been interested to know her story more, but she can't talk, and we never find it out. So
it's just so tragic. But yeah, I don't know. I guess our final from the Hunger Games is Gale's family. They did not make an appearance. So just to fill everyone in, if you didn't know, so Gale is the oldest brother to 3 other siblings. It's Rory, Vic, and Posey. And then his mother is named Hazel. And I love Hazel. She's the only redeeming quality about Gale. But she's also a woman from the Seam who lost her husband in the same accident that Katniss's dad died in. And so they really don't interact much in the first book, besides him talking about siblings and her talking about how they met and him raising his family pretty much. But I kind of wish we would have at least seen Hazel in Catching Fire, because there is that really short scene at the beginning of the book where she brings the food and the trading to Hazel because Gale works full-time in the mines at that point. And there's like a line from Hazel, I didn't write it down, but it's something about how he saves his Sundays for Katniss when he's not working. And I hate Gale, guys. I hate Gale. But there's something about hearing that line from his mom, who knows him in a different way than Katniss knows him, in a different way that we know him, that just makes him, like, you feel really bad for Gale. I felt bad
Yeah.
for Gale.
I mean, she's
So,
his mom, so she loves him
yeah,
unconditionally.
exactly. And so just that one interaction with Katniss and Hazel is something that I really do enjoy. Um, and I honestly would have loved to see them in the film, at least little Posey and Mockingjay, because that would have been really adorable. But
I
I
know.
guess I guess he also gives a different side of Gale than like the cold man that we do know, because Katniss is acting for her family and Gale's acting for his family, but that's not one thing that the movie makes clear of for him. So
Yeah, I think both PETA and Gail's family, it would have been nice to see more of them just to give them a little bit more development. Like it makes them seem like they're just out there alone in the world, but
mhm.
they have people they have to protect too, but we never see those people. So we don't really, we don't care about them.
Yeah. Yeah, but then again, it would have just been hard to find them a spot in the first movie because they're
Yeah,
not
there's so
really
many
in
other
it.
characters that should have been in. Okay, so let's move on to Catching Fire.
There's two very important characters that didn't make Catching Fire, and that's Bonnie and Twill. So just a refresher, Katniss comes across Bonnie and Twill, who are refugees, I guess you could call them, from District 8, and they're fleeing to find District 13. Um, so they're important characters because Katniss had no idea that District 13 was still alive at that point, because she talks about the screen that they're shown of, or the footage of the the the, the rubble of the district, I guess you could say. And so they're the ones that point out that there's a Mockingjay that always flies back and forth in the corner of the screen. So I thought that they were really important characters because um, their backstory has a lot to do with the rebellion. That I think in the movie just jumps to rebellion happens overnight, and it just starts because Katniss got out of the arena both times, I guess. But for me, they're both really important characters because I think it's Twill, who's the older one, who's the school teacher who works at the peacekeeping factory at night. So over time, she starts collecting different like uniform pieces so her and Twill can escape after their families are both killed in a bombing, because the Capitol had registered that there is rebellious activities going on there. So there are people who lose everything and flee because of it. And they're the first characters that demonstrate to Katniss, I would say, that there's a lot going on in the districts and it's bigger than she had ever even imagined. And she can't quell it because, yeah, she can act like she loves PETA, but at this point, it doesn't really matter. And yeah, I wrote down an important line from Twill that was it says a Mockingjay, just a glimpse of it as it flies by, the same one every time. And that's referring to the District 13 footage. And so they're definitely really important characters that I'd wish that were included in the films, honestly. But
It makes me wonder if Lavinia and her, the boy with her were going to District 13 and if they knew
yeah.
about it and if they had maybe figured that out from the footage or, I just want to know their story really bad.
Yeah, yeah. And I
um,
also read something that was really interesting. I didn't know this, but apparently Bonnie and Twill weren't put into the film because Francis Lawrence said that he didn't want to spoil the end of Catching Fire and the fact that there was a District 13. And so
yeah,
that
that
was
goes
something that I'd
along
never known.
that goes along with why the Plutarch scene was cut of the pocket watch
Hmm.
and hinting that the arena was hinting that he was a good guy, I guess, so that like something was brewing that
Hmm.
Katniss didn't know about. He wanted that to be like a total surprise. So that explains why he cut that, why he cut the District 13 stuff. I kind of understand. I don't think Bonnie and Twill are as important of characters. I think they could introduce. They just didn't want to give any hint of District 13, which I kind of like in the movies that it's a surprise, and they don't really in my opinion, have time to build up that anticipation. That like it's just another like subplot that I think takes too much time. So I don't think outside of revealing District 13, Bonnie and Twill are important. So they could have easily done that a different way. They end up not really going that route, but
yeah, I would say that I found them really important because, again, I think that they are characters that demonstrate rebellion doesn't happen overnight. I think in the movies, it comes off like Katniss and Peeta ate the Nightlock. All of a sudden, there's all this uproar in the districts, and then all of a sudden they're taken out of the second arena, and there's all this uproar. And so I think for me, the films, because films are so fast, it was hard to register that this is taking place over time and that there always has been a sort of rebellion underneath things happening, and Katniss was just the one to like surface it. And so for me, I think those are characters that introduce Katniss to the problem that she doesn't even recognize is happening.
But I think we get that in Catching Fire when they're on the victory tour and we see like that rebellion brewing, we see the crowds reacting, we see her see rebellion on the screens in the train. We see that rebellion. It's not, I mean, Katniss doesn't see it, but we see how District 11 reacts when Rue dies in the first film. I think that comes across decently. Maybe not the best.
Yeah, I think it's okay, but I think there were just two characters that, because Katniss has her goggles on, that she's just only seeing like, I have this one mission to prove that I love Peeta, that there's
already people fleeing and wanting to join. Yeah, I get that.
And I guess even just the thought that what was I gonna say? Just the thought that they are characters that come out of nowhere, and again, it's like that run-in with Lavinia in the woods. I think it just adds to that plot that District 13 has existed this whole time, and they're just waiting for this moment. And so instead of thinking that all of a sudden everyone joins together, I just kind of felt that they were important to getting that plot of resistance out, or that theme of resistance. But
yeah, I guess if we're comparing like Bonnie and Twill and also Lavinia, probably Bonnie and Twill are more important to see as, because they're both characters, they're all characters that run. Bonnie and Twill are a little bit better to have included because they have more context.
Yeah, but it would have been hard, I think, even just having the thought process of running into them in the woods and introducing them, and they obviously die, so it's, I don't know, it would have definitely been hard to have in a movie.
There's a lot cut from Catching Fire because then she comes back from the woods and that's when she like hurts herself, and there's a lot there.
That was such a cool part.
Taken out. I know.
Pretending her spine is okay, her tailbone.
Like, I know, so many people. That's probably, I would say, a top like missing point from Catching Fire.
Yeah.
But Catching Fire is pretty great, so it did as good as it could.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so our next character we talked about a little bit before is Maysilee Donner. So she is the fellow tribute from the 50th Hunger Games, the Quarter Quell, that Haymitch was also in. She's from District 12, and she is the sister of Madge's mother, so Madge's aunt.
Yeah, because they were twins, weren't they?
They were twins.
I think Maysilee was a twin, which is kind of
cool. So, I mean, I feel like she's important to... Well, first of all, if she was included, then there would have been more about Haymitch's games, which I feel was needed. I mean, Catching Fire is fantastic, but if I could pick anything to fix about Catching Fire, it would be 10 more minutes, 5 more minutes, just to include Haymitch's games and get a further look at that. The Mockingjay pin, of course, which was Maysilee's token in the games, which is just such a really cool detail that's left out. And it would have just shown more parallels with Katniss, how Peeta and Katniss were in the arena kind of defying the rules, and that's what Haymitch and not Maysilee, but she was a part of it. Haymitch did as well.
Hmm. I thought Maysilee was also important because it gives Katniss's mom more of a character, because Katniss's mom was like best friends with Maysilee Donner, and I thought that was something really cool about the recap that they have in the book where they're watching the whole games go through. Is Katniss recognizes her mom and is like, "Who's this woman that my mom is clinging to?"
Mm,
And you understand more because obviously Katniss's mom deals with some sort of depression and mental illness. Um, how it started at such a young age, we think it just happened because of Katniss's father, but it shows how awful her whole life has been because her seemingly we can assume her best friend is taken to the games, and she makes it really far with Haymitch, but unfortunately dies in a really awful way.
yeah, there's all these details about the adult characters
Hmm.
that is just missing, and how they all interact. Like, I don't know, not really necessary for the movies, I don't think, in terms of just how the adults are related to each other, I guess, and their story. But
Hmm. I think it just shows that generational experience that we're just
yeah,
shown in the books that Katniss is experiencing, but then when she learns about Mr. Malark's relationship to her mom, then it
it's
takes her
all
back
happened
even
before,
further. Yeah,
and it all
it's
happen
going
keep
on.
happening again if nothing changes.
Hmm. Yeah, so I love her, and again, I'll always talk about Mainstay Rose videos.
They are
But I
great.
love that. I loved Haymitch's games. What I would give up the rooftop scene in Catching Fire to watch Haymitch's games because
I would too. It would make
it's
Catching Fire that much more perfect.
yeah, I really just want to see that because Haymitch is such a fascinating character. Again, like last week we couldn't agree on his personality type because we only know one side of him, and I just want to see young Haymitch. I loved reading about it. I think it was the most fascinating games that I had ever read about, honestly more fascinating than the Quell. Um, it's just like it's so interesting, just all these little connections that I think feed into the story to make it what it is. I love Maysilee. I wish she would have made it in just so we could see that.
Yeah, I love the parallels between Katniss and Haymitch.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would have been so nice.
Yeah.
Maybe someday in a reboot.
Please.
'Cause
You do
we're never getting a Haymitch book. That's not
that.
happening.
I will say it now. I would give up a Finnick book, an Annie book. I would give up um any sort of like after Katniss and Peeta get married, any other book to read a Haymitch book. I want a Haymitch book more than anything.
Same.
And I think I've grown into his character a lot more because when I read the books younger, I was just like, oh, he's okay. Then I read about his games and I was interested. But now going back and reading his story at the age I am, I love Haymitch. I want to know everything about that man. So we need a Haymitch book. If anyone
Yeah.
has a good Haymitch fan fiction, leave it commented
I
because
would
I
read
want to
it.
read it.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, but yeah, Maysilee was definitely a character we missed out on. But that brings me to our last character for Catching Fire, Darius, who I love. I am obsessed with Darius. So Darius, he is one of the youngest peacekeepers in District 12. He'd often hang out at the Hob with Katniss, and um, he was a really like lax guy, I guess you could call him. Katniss was, I would consider him one of Katniss's like acquaintances slash friends, which again goes along with your comments about knowing how likable she actually was to the district.
Hmm.
Um, one interesting part that I love about his character was that Gale realized he loved Katniss because of Darius. Because on New Year's Eve, one time there's a flashback, and Darius is going around asking like Katniss, like, give him a New Year's kiss, and Gale realizes he's jealous, and
Yo, she's mine.
but yet he doesn't do anything, so that's on you, Gale. But and Catching Fire, he's also one of the I think he's well, I guess Katniss and Peeta and Haymitch intervene when Gale's getting whipped, but at 20 whips, he comes in and says like, well, we need to calm down, you're gonna kill the man. And then thread is like, we're gonna keep doing it. So at that point, that's the last time we see him in District 12, and then he becomes an Avox and is actually somebody who cares for Katniss when she is taken to the tribute center before her quarter quell at Hunger Games. So yeah.
Just like Lavinia.
It hurts me. That one,
when they call them a matching set, I'm like, oh.
I know.
Like, no, they're more than that. They're people.
Yes, reading that part where, because I think it's one of the chapter endings where we find out that it's Darius. Because Suzanne always does this thing, like we talked about at the end of every chapter. It's just like, bam, and you're like, I need to keep reading. I think that was one of them. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, and when I read that, my heart broke because I would consider him one of Katniss's friends. I would. And so just to experience that before she's going into a second games is more than traumatic. And it just hurts me. And the way he dies hurts me. And everything about him hurts me.
And a lot of trauma before she goes into the arena.
Yeah, the second time I'm like, oh, girl, chill,
with Snow. A lot.
Snow really was hurting. Oh my God. But I really would have loved to see him in the movies, to be honest.
I like that it shows that, you know, it gives the peacekeepers a face too. Like they're not all evil necessarily. And I loved reading in Ballad. Well, I don't know how much we want to get into spoilers for Ballad, but in Ballad we see more about peacekeepers. And so I think that informs the character of Darius too, because we don't know, like he's probably a capital citizen or a District 2, not sure, who like chose to be a peacekeeper or maybe had to be a peacekeeper. I don't know. Reading Ballad makes me want to know even more about Darius.
Yeah, I agree. It's just so hard because the fact that he becomes an Avox, again, we need to see more of these Avoxes because
and it shows that you're never safe. Like
exactly.
Even if you're like with the Capitol, everyone's under control.
I agree completely. It was just it's a really hard character to read too overall because again, he was just this kind of like funny guy. I think he gave a lot of humor to the Hob and the interactions Katniss had there. So again, we just need to see more Avoxes because we do in Mockingjay, but it's like too late. We don't get to see it in action when the Capitol is full reign, you know? So that's somebody I would have loved to see.
That's the hard thing about the movies, making like the conscious choice to stick with Katniss only in her perspective, which I feel like is a good choice in a way, but I think I would have liked to have seen more of the world and have it be expanded outside of Katniss and just that her central story. But then maybe it would have gotten ridiculous. So
yeah, just more of the Capitol, I guess.
Okay, so our last group of characters are all the ones that were cut from the Mockingjay films. So the first character that I have is Deli Cartwright. Holly loves.
I love her.
She's a classmate of Katniss and Peeta. She survives the bombing of District 12, so she's in District 13, and I would say her main role is in the movie where we see Prim go in after Peeta's hijacking and he gets rescued. She goes in and she talks to him. That's the character of Deli in the books. I feel like she's kind of unnecessary. I think Prim fills that role perfectly, and it's nice to have more Prim in the movies as much as we can. So probably my only complaint would be that Prim is a little bit too close to Katniss to really fill that role. I think that's kind of like a plot hole in a way, because that Prim would absolutely trigger thoughts of Katniss, whereas Deli was totally removed from Katniss, so that would have been a better person for Peeta to interact with from District 12.
Yeah.
initially.
See, I think I liked her a lot as a character. She's definitely not my favorite character by any means, but I really respected her character because, again, you're seeing who Peeta got along with. It's not just Peeta, Katniss, Gale, like the District 12 crew, you know what I mean? It showed that Peeta existed outside of Katniss's world and vice versa. So for me, I just liked how sweet she was and how, again, like you said with Prim, it was hard to get away from a character who reminds Peeta of Katniss. But I think that she just showed like a little bit more of a backstory in going in the book and talking about they used to play together and all that. And then another important part I thought was that the lunch table scene towards the end of the Mockingjay book, where Peeta comes to sit with them for the first time after he's hijacked at lunch. And then Deli is the one who's kind of just like the peacekeeper. And she's really not an important character, I will say that, but I think she just kind of added a sense of home because Peeta doesn't have home, obviously, after Mockingjay or after catching fire. So for me, she was just always, she added to him, and we all know I love him. So, but yeah.
Anything that gives Peeta more development.
Exactly. That's all I need.
Yeah, I agree. She's just another friend that was cut and would have given more fullness to several characters.
She's kind of like Madge, and it wouldn't have been that hard to add her, I don't think. Because again, her interaction would have been so quick. It would be like 3 minutes to have her go in and talk to him.
Then you have to explain who she is.
With Haymitch. Haymitch is like, oh, this is like her old...
But we don't know Deli, and so there's less... I feel like there'd be less care in that scene. Like, why is this random person going in to meet Peeta?
But then we didn't really know her too in the books until Katniss is told or like remembers briefly. Like the thing is, she doesn't really add too much. It's just, I think she would have been an easy character to supplement in there.
But I feel like when it's visual, it makes it even harder.
Yeah. But they could also just be like, this is Peeta's oldest friend, and she's here. And then and she struts her
oldest, goodest friend that we've never seen before.
You know, she
Trust
was there.
us.
If you look in that scene from the Hunger Games in the way back, the blonde girl, that's her. That's her. She was there the whole time. We're just gonna insert her into all the movies now. No. We're just gonna point to some rando, like the Hazel clip.
Let's find like, some blonde girl in the films.
She's
like,
there.
Went out with the crowd.
Oh my gosh, let somebody edit me into the crowd. It's me. I'm Deli.
I think you'd make a good Maysilee. If I had to cast you.
Oh my gosh. Thanks.
You'd be with, young Haymitch for a little bit.
Girl, don't even. Young Haymitch comes a close second to Peeta. So
just because of Mainstay Pro.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whoever the actor was, I forget his name.
That production company.
You guys, so good. So good.
I'm gonna watch that after this.
Please do. I rewatched them this year after not watching them in probably a decade, and I love you.
I watched the Katniss and Prim one after we talked about it last time, and I was so sad. I was tearing up.
Wait, the Katniss and Prim or the Katniss and Rue? Is there a Prim one?
Sorry, Katniss and Rue. What am I saying?
Oh, okay. I was like, there's a Prim one. I need to get on that.
Rue is basically Prim. Okay.
True. Agreed. Awesome. Okay, before we get carried away with all these characters, next character from Mockingjay, who I could care less about, to be honest. That's how I'm going to introduce him, is Dalton. He's a refugee from District 10. I need to read what his bio was. He was a cattle rancher who maintained genetic diversity on the beef ranch of District 10. So he was kind of involved in the books. He wasn't too big. He's the one who, when they're getting Katniss ready to be the Mockingjay in Mockingjay, his quote is, "She's still a girl and you can't make her look 35. Feels wrong, like something the Capitol will do." And then his great act of kindness is he officiates Annie and Finnick's wedding. So So somebody took a screenshot of the guy who does officiate their wedding in the movie, and we just kind of assume it's Dalton. But
Oh wait, I need to see what he looks like.
he looks like just a random everyday man. I looked
That's
on the
Dalton.
wiki. Yeah, I looked on the wiki and I was like, oh, okay, there's a photo of him. So he was in the movie, I guess.
I mean, so he ran away from District 10,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's just like
Yeah.
another character. All these characters that she interacts with that make it there on their own. It's just interesting. But I like Dalton because I'm District 10. I live in District 10.
Really?
Yeah, I'm District 10.
Really?
I've always identified with that. And when I did the Tumblr Hunger Games back in 2011, I was District 10. I was the District 10 girl.
Oh.
So that's my district, Arizona.
Okay.
District
I'm gonna
10,
stop. I'm gonna
Seattle.
stop hating. Gonna stop hating on District 10.
So I like that we get some representation.
See, I've never known on the map if I'm District 2 or the capital, and I've kind of always just said I'm the capital so I can not get killed. But District 2 wouldn't be too bad to
would be
live
the
in.
capital.
Just Denver area, just hey guys, protected by the Rocky Mountains. But for me, it's just I always assumed I was the capital and that I could get away with it. But I feel like I'd be safe either way from the reaping.
But he also is the one who tells Katniss that about the like pandemic, or pandemic's the wrong word, epidemic that District 13 has, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he also kind of introduces that they need more people. Like they don't necessarily want a whole bunch of people. I mean, if they're going to stay underground and have to survive and everything, but they need people. And then is that the conversation where Katniss finds out that Coin lost her family?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because her daughter died because of that epidemic.
So, I mean, that's an interesting conversation, but not necessarily one that character had to bring up, I guess. They just needed someone who lived in District 13.
Yeah. There's also, I kind of wish that we learned more about different districts, because there's Finnick from 4, Joanna from 7, BT from 3, Kiddo Clo from 2, you know. But I feel like we never get to know much about, a little bit about 8. We don't know about 9 or 10 really overall. There's no major 6, besides the Morphlings, but they're not like big characters where you know the backstory. And so that was kind of something I always wanted, was to see the characters from each district, because then again it's like
they're all just living in misery. So
yeah, I just don't know anyone that I care about besides you from District 10. So I want to know more about
Glad
it.
we got that straight.
I just want to know more about it, you know. So yeah, I don't know. I could have done without him.
Yeah. Throwaway character, I guess.
Yeah. Same with the next one, in my opinion, but
Fulvia Cardew is next on our list. So
I texted Emily this morning because I was looking her up, and I was like, oh my gosh, she's related to somebody in Ballad. I had
big
no
brain
idea.
Moment.
Emily's like, duh.
No, I didn't know either while I was reading it. I definitely didn't pick up on that, and someone had written it online when I was looking later, because I mean, I didn't want to be spoiled while I was reading it, but I was like, oh, she's, that's the same last name. That's really interesting. But they may not be related either. Like, it might just be a name drop.
I feel like she did it on purpose.
There's not really a reason.
I feel like she did it on purpose, because there's so many other name drops where it's like, well, like Flickerman is in it, you know. That's the only one I can remember. But
yeah, but I guess with the Flickerman, like there's something related there where they're both like on TV, right? They're like both entertainers.
I hated that.
Yeah, it made me wonder. Okay, this is a valid tangent, but it made me wonder if families tend to do the same occupation.
It's kind of like them. it reminded me of like the merchant in the Seam from 12. So like you would stay within it unless you married out of it. So
yeah, like the family business. It's like
I just can't, I
it's
can't wait to
weird.
see who Flickerman Senior is in the movie.
Oh my gosh. Maybe they'll have Stanley Tucci do it, and
Oh
he'll
yeah.
just wear like some prosthetic or something. Wouldn't that be
He'll be really
amazing?
old. He'll be 10 years older when the movie comes out.
Who
I'm
cares?
sure. So he'll look older, I'm sure.
That
Because
would be great.
this is such a tangent, but when I read Ballad and read that it was like Flickerman Senior and Flickerman Junior, I was like, really? Is that necessary? I thought it was lame. I did not like that.
Yeah, there's a couple things about Ballad that there's too many connections, in my opinion,
I
between the
agree.
original trilogy and Ballad. So I was a little disappointed in Suzanne for that. But
I felt like it was almost fishing for moments too much for us to
it
be
was
like, oh
overdoing
my
it.
gosh, yeah. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Glad we
tangent.
agree. So Fulvia Cardew, she is Plutarch's assistant, and she's in District 13 throughout Mockingjay. Effie pretty much takes her role, takes like a lot of her lines, which is great. I think it works perfect. Fulvia's unnecessary, and the things that she does say that are worthwhile, Effie takes over, because in the books, Effie is not in District 13.
Yeah. I didn't
And
I never liked Fulvia when I read the books. There was nothing
she was kind of rude.
important to me. Yeah. Yeah, she was rude, and it was just like nothing she did stood out to me. I don't know. I had already gotten to know other people from the Capitol who, like her prep team, I think were a lot better than Fulvia. I don't know. I
And
just kind of
Effie
felt like,
herself. So
yeah, like the intern. Like everyone kind of looks down on the intern, so it's just kind of like, So I don't know.
I just love that Suzanne loved Effie so much in
Yeah,
Catching
that's what I
Fire that
read.
she like called up the people. She was like, excuse me, I know Effie's not in it, but like put her in the movie. Like she has to be in Mockingjay, and that there was a character that she could take some lines from and just take over. So goodbye, Fulvia.
I didn't know that until today when I read that about her character, and I was like, go Suzanne. That's a power move to just be like, get Fulvia out of here.
Suzanne realized that she should have, done more with Effie, even in the books.
Yeah. I mean, Effie's a powerful character in the movies, and I obviously you like her more in the movies than in the books, but I think there's a lot more to her in that character in the movie than there is to Fulvia in the book. So yeah, don't miss
There's
you.
no reason to like introduce another random character that we don't need. So
yeah. Our next one. How did you pronounce this? Is it Dr. Aurelius?
I was glad that you were assigned this one because I was gonna wait to hear what you were gonna say because I have no idea.
I said
Dr.
Aurelius.
Aurelius? Aurelius is what I would say.
Aurelius?
I have no idea. I need a movie
I should have
or an
Siri'd it
audiobook.
before. Yeah. So Dr. A, we'll call him.
Dr. A.
He was the resident doctor of District 13, and he has a fun relationship with Katniss at first because she wouldn't talk the whole time during their therapy sessions or something like that, and he would just nap. So that was really helpful to her, beneficial. But then he does become the head doctor in charge of PETA's hijacking in District 13. So that was a really big part that he played. And then for me, I found his character to be most important at the end of Mockingjay. And after rereading Mockingjay recently, I hadn't read it. The last time I read it was over 5 years ago. So I was like a lot younger, and for me now to read it and go back and understand actually the ending was a whole different experience for me. And so I thought that Dr. A was a really, 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 really important character because He's the one who gets Katniss out of her, who gets her out of trouble in the end, because he says that she was a hopeless, shell-shocked lunatic, and that's why she killed Coin. And then that's the person who contacts her until she just stops answering the phone when she moves back to District 12. And then he was also the one who found, I guess, put a theory on it that Katniss had become like a mental AVOX after Prim died, because the death of her sister hurt her so bad that she doesn't speak for pretty much the whole entire end of Mockingjay. And so that was something I had completely forgot about the books, to be honest with you, because I had only been relying on the movies the last few years. So I think that his character is so important, especially in Katniss and Johanna's relationship, and them wanting so badly to get back to the capital and to be a part of the squad that takes down Snow. I don't know.
Which was all missing.
Yeah, he demonstrates the mental illness part that was not there. And the only part of the mental illness that we really see in Mockingjay the movie is Finnick, his whole character, I guess, just doing the knots. But then the opening line about Katniss having to repeat that saying over and over. So for me, I thought Dr. A was somebody who, being stripped from the movie, took away this whole mental aspect that is huge in Mockingjay, especially the end. So
yeah, I don't know if I can say it any better. Like, I'm glad we agree on this. The note that I put would have increased the focus on Katniss's mental health and her work to restore herself. So I think he was a super important character. I mean, he, like you said, his defense of her in the trial. I think if we had gotten this character, then maybe it meant we would have seen the trial, which I feel like was missing. I understand why they cut it because Katniss wasn't there, but him just explaining how mentally unstable, how mentally affected she was, and if he was included, there just would have been so much more focus on her mental health, which is a big part of Mockingjay, and I feel like it's pretty lacking in the films.
I think you and I should do a Mockingjay like last 100 pages book talk. Yeah, because I really need to talk to somebody about this, because obviously at a younger age, I never understood, like I understood it, but I didn't understand the whole her trying to commit suicide and her being locked into this mental state where she can't speak. I think I just read past that, but when I reread it a few weeks ago, I could not stop crying the whole time I read it. I think it is such a powerful ending to a book that I need to go into that. So I feel like we should definitely do that.
And I think it was probably some of Suzanne Collins's favorite stuff to write. Like, that's what she was going towards. Like, that was her goal. Like, she really wanted to show the effect that war PTSD has on people, because that's part of her personal story.
Yeah. So, yeah. And we see just in the movies, like, how can you survive when I'm trying to put this into words, but we only see it briefly in Catching Fire at the beginning, where she shoots the arrow and tries to kill the turkey, and then it's Marvel, which I'm so happy that they put in there.
It's powerful.
But it's just like going home, and I wanted to see more of just maybe a montage, like a sequence of seeing her live this life after killing other kids, after Mockingjay, where she's watching her whole squad pretty much die in front of her eyes because of her. Everything she does, like, everyone dies mostly because of Katniss in Mockingjay. And so it's just like having that guilt again. It comes back to that thing you said. She's doing things based on guilt. And at the end, she just physically and mentally can't do anything because that guilt debilitates her. So I need to talk about Mockingjay.
Yeah, the big breakdowns we see are that hallucination of Marvel, and then with Buttercup at the end. But she's like that like the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. But definitely a character I needed to see, and I think that is probably the biggest letdown of this series, is that theme of loss during war and what it actually is PTSD and what is mental illness, because she goes through so much, and we can read that from her perspective, but we can't we aren't shown it in the movies. So
yeah, it's a lot
yeah.
in her head and her thoughts. So
Yeah.
I would have liked to see that more visually too. So the last character that we have for Mockingjay is Greasy Say. So she's the Hob vendor, I think. I mean, we see her at the Hob in the other books, but in Mockingjay we see when Katniss comes back from the war and is back in District 12, Greasy Say also comes back from District 13, and they kind of try to go back to life as normal, and Greasy Say takes care of her a little bit. I like that part in Mockingjay just because it shows things like trying to return to normal, like people still at the end of all this like go back to their lives, like Greasy Say is trying to rebuild and do what she was always doing. So
Yeah.
I mean I like Greasy Say as a character. I don't know like how important she is compared to these, I mean compared like to Dr. A, like, but she's all right.
See, going into this, I thought you would have put Greasy Say as one of the important characters. I don't know.
Really?
Yeah,
It doesn't really do much.
Yeah, I guess if you put in Dr. A, you should have put in Greasy Say into the movies, because I guess just my interpretation of Greasy Say was she was a part of that restoration, like you said, but she helped Katniss get out of that AVOX mental state, I think, because her and her granddaughter would come over every day and be like, you need to eat, you need to do this, you need to go hunting.
Yeah.
So I think that she was the therapist that Dr. A wasn't to Katniss at the end of the book. Well, that's all I had for the characters that did not make the movies.
Yeah, I feel like that was pretty good discussion. There are a lot of characters that didn't make it. But of course, Madge is you. I mean, you'd agree that Madge is the number one
queen
character
of all of these. Yeah, I feel like, in my opinion, it would be like Madge number 1, Dr. A number 2, and the Maysilee number 3.
Yeah.
There we go. No arguing this week. We agree.
That's if like Maysilee wasn't in it, but there was still Haymitch's games. Like, I don't know.
Make 2
I
more
don't know if I want
films.
Dr. A or Haymitch's games more, because they're both important.
I want Haymitch's games more. I can read about her depression
without Maysilee.
I just want Haymitch, young Haymitch, and I want to see how he was. I want to see that cunning, arrogant man that he was going into the games. I really do.
I know. It would have been
His
so
interview.
good. And just the contrast of who he was and who he became.
The introvert. It all goes back to the introvert.
I will concede. He's an ambivert.
I love this.
Cool. Well, thanks for talking through all that with me. Next week, we are going to be talking all about the love triangle in the series. So, was the romance in the Hunger Games even a love triangle? Maybe we'll compare it to some other popular series, Twilight.
We love Twilight.
And we'll just have a lot of fun with that. So, check that out next week if you're interested. Follow our social media. We have all of that up. At Into the Arena Podcast on TikTok and Instagram, and communicate with us. Let us know if there's anything you want us to talk about, and we will be happy to, because we're going to be doing this for hopefully a long time.
Yes, I look forward to it all the time. And again, for all our Gale supporters, talk to me. Let's have communication about this. I want it to be open, okay? Share your thoughts with me.